Hello, I'm Joel Blackford with Beth Chesed Sabbath Fellowship. We are not meeting yet. Call 612-315-6778 before you attend. And we do the philosophy of eschatology, what you need to know, your reality, our existence, what's going on. We try not to be disparate. We try to make sense with whatever is going on in your life. We're Beth Chesed Sabbath Fellowship. Come and enjoy the video. I'm sorry we don't have fellowship yet, but we're getting closer. We're negotiating. That's a good step. So, and we've been closed for a year and 2 months. Wow. The philosophy of the birth pangs of labor. So once again, there are great people out there. John Haller's one of them. They'll give you the whole story and nothing but the whole story. I don't do that. I just give you the philosophy behind it. So what's behind the story that you're hearing? And some guys can go on for an hour or two. I just can't do that. In fact, this will be a long video. I'm sorry. I apologize right now. So I'm saying there are some historical warnings that are like birth pangs that we're experiencing right now. So, and as always, Beth Chesed and my beliefs personally are that the seven seals sound a lot like Matthew 24. Okay, the birth pangs should be similar. Okay, I argue that if you're a woman and you were pregnant at one point in time, you knew that you were pregnant. You weren't going, well, I don't think I'm pregnant. Now, I truly know one woman that didn't know that she was pregnant. She went into the emergency room and she'd been playing broomball the night before, and she's the only person that I know that didn't know that she was pregnant. And I, as a guy, figured out that she was pregnant before all of the women friends, my wife and other people. So it was really, really, really funny. And her son was my music arranger for a number of years there. So it's kind of interesting. So you knew your body was changing. Other than that one lady, every woman knew that her body was changing. You were getting closer to delivery. Your birth pangs were expected and part of the plan. You looked forward to the pain through the wonderful birth. So obviously the pain was horrific, but the birth was worth the pain. Okay, your birth pangs were irregular at first, and then they became regular. Your water broke. You didn't push until your cervix was dilated to a 10. The male pastors really don't get birth because they're looking for something completely different. And so if you look at the diagrams coming up later, much later, you're going to see they don't get it at all. Okay, and maybe they weren't around for the births of their own children. We're going to do a lot of Where's Waldo with the birth pangs that are going on right now. Okay, and obviously the Gaza war is going on, so that may or may not be a birth pang. I don't know. And so I've argued for many years now that Seal 1 was 1967 west of Jerusalem. Seal 2, these are Zechariah 6 directions. Seal 2 was east of Jerusalem, and the first one, Seal 1, is the fall of Western civilization. Seal 2 is a war that never ends, the Bush-Cheney wars that are just oil-driven. Seal 3, I was part of that prophecy. I heard the person mention that it would happen in 2012, and whatever he prophesied did happen. So we've got 1967, the Temple Mount is handed back, and that's a birth pang, okay, after the war, Six-Day War, which is amazing. They should have lost that war and many other wars. So then we get into the 2000s, and we see all of these wars that the Bush-Cheney family has kicked off, and to watch Liz Cheney get kicked out of leadership in the House is really pretty cool. So, I mean, she's part of the conspiracy. War for oil, war for oil. So I'm telling you that since, 1967, but then kicked up again in 2001, 2003, then 2012, Pope Benedict announced that he was going to resign. Okay. Then the summer of 2012, the third seal opened. Then 2013, Pope Francis became the false prophet, I believe. Okay, and we'll see. We'll see. And that's not a rip on Catholics. As always, I say I love the individual Catholics that love the Lord, but I don't really like Pope Francis. And I just was on the phone with a Catholic friend this week, and she said, "Of course, Pope Francis is a communist." So they know it too. So then the blood moons occurred, and the sign of those was that Russia's moving towards the Middle East, and they're finally in there. They're in Syria, entrenched, and they want to make money off oil. They're not looking for a war. I don't believe that Russia is Gog Magog. I believe they're just trying to make a buck, and that's where the oils are. The oil is, and that's where their pipeline is and will be. So 2015, Obama really solidified himself as Gog. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Russia moves into Syria. Shemitah year begins. Then in 2016, 2017, the Jubilee year begins. according to my calculations, which could be wrong. Then 2018, I thought we were going to begin tribulation. So I started Beth Chesed in 2017 saying, hey, it's going to happen. So let's get ready for this. And then nothing happened. Then 2019, we moved forward in Obama at Pergamum Museum. I figured that's going to kick it off. No, it really didn't. 2020, COVID-19. Isn't that the sign? That's another birth pang, right? No, not really. I mean, it could be. I don't know. 2021, Biden. Pope Francis went to Shinar, Babylon just a few weeks ago. Um, any of the increasing years coming up, we don't know. We know that to the woman, he said, I will greatly increase your pain in childbirth. You will bring forth children in pain. That's not a curse. That just means pain. Your desire will be toward your husband, but he will rule over you. Genesis 3:16. So with Kushner saying we're going to continue on with the Abrahamic Accords, is this a birth pain? I don't know, but it sounds like it. It's interesting. And then everybody's saying, well, Trump, you failed. You failed. Your signature Israel policy had a key flaw. We're seeing it now. Well, duh. I mean, the whole policy has failed for 50, 80, 2,000 years. There's been no peace in the Middle East ever. I mean, it's been tribal, and it's tribal now. We just want there are many Arab countries. We want them to exist in peace, and we want Israel to exist in peace because they're just a little tiny sliver of land. Just let it be, okay? And then, of course, Jim Carrey weighed in down there, and those are what do you call the shield? I'm blanking on it right now. So anyway, it shows the rockets being launched from Gaza, and then Israel having their defense, their interesting defense system, which seems to work. Very brilliant. Okay, so as always, I'm mentioning that Bibi and Jared Kushner have put together four of the peace agreements with Niger, no, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco. But they've got four more to go. And so Bibi just recently advertised, hey, I've got four more to go. And then this is interesting. This is from Henry Groover via Michael Snyder, who's a friend of mine. And I met with Henry back in 2017, just before this was prophesied. He said, hey, when you see that Israel has entered Gaza, you know these are the birth pangs. This is that Middle East war. So when Israel sends troops into Gaza, it will be a sign that the Middle East war has started. Now, I don't know where to place this Middle East war in the end times. I don't know where to put them. Outside the 7 years, inside the 7 years, I have no idea. I'm just saying this is Henry. I love the guy. I met the guy. I met with him for, I don't know, 4 hours. And I show the picture of where I met him in a cornfield. It was so bizarre. I drove along for hours in Iowa looking at the tall corn. And then finally there was a little tiny clearing, and that's where the church was, and that's where Henry was. So it was a fun meeting. I've met with Michael Boldea and Henry Groover. I never met the other fellow, David Wilkerson. Great men, all three of them predicting that bad things were going to happen at some point in time. If you want to read David Wilkerson's 1973 The Vision, you can. If you'd like to hit Hand of Help, which is Michael Boldea, and read anything up on what Dimitri Duduman said, or if you want to talk about Henry Groover, Steve Quayle is pretty much the guy that has all the Henry Groover videos and audio tapes. Okay, so the other guy out there that talks about this is Bill Salas. He never really says what's going on, but he talks about it all day, every day, about the Psalm 83 Confederacy. And so he's pretty much listing these different nations or tribes, we could call them, from Psalm 83 that will come against Israel. So Edom, the Ishmaelites, the Moab, Hagrites, Gibal, Ammon, Amalek, Philistia, Tyre, Assyria. Well, is Tyre maybe Lebanon? I don't know. But he's kind of listing off these areas of where they may be. And then here's the actual quote from Psalm 83 in the Hebrew. So it's Edom, Ishmael, Merim. Oh, so Ishmael. Okay, yeah, all right. So anyway, Moab and Hagarim and everything like that. So it's just interesting that conspiracy is still sitting out there. How it fits into the birth banks, I don't know. No one knows where Psalm 83 fits in. Continuing on, so Daniel 9:27, he will strengthen, increase. He will brit that brit. So he will confirm, strengthen, increase that brit, that covenant with Ravim and that's powerful ones, not wimpy little ones like UAE, for Heptad, so 7 years. In the midst of the Heptad, he will cause the Zavak and the Minka. So Zavak would be like a peace offering, kind of like Passover is a peace offering, where you share it. And the Minka, which is an afternoon offering, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it's a grain offering, to cease on the kanaf, the wing of the abomination. So if I'm wearing tzitzits right now, which I actually am, that's like a wing, okay, of the abominations, is one making desolate, even until the complete destruction, the destruction that is decreed, poured out upon the shomem, the desolator, the destroyer. So are those the birth pangs? Are we watching that right now? Are the Abraham Accords part of this fulfillment? We'll find out. Will it reach 10 nations? That would be a minion. Is that the exact number that we're waiting for to increase this covenant? We'll find out. So as always, we're covering the philosophy of the end of days. We're handling birth pangs today. This is going to be a long one. Get ready for a long ride. I'm going to read some scripture. I tend to lose a lot of viewers during the scripture. We try not to twist the Bible. We try to give you the real prophecy and the painful ones too, and then the fake news. And I will be quoting a lot of scripture. So yeah, just get prepared to just hunker down and get through this one. You'll get a birth at the end, huh? So the 10 signs that the tribulation is near. They're saying deception, dissension, devastation, disease, disasters, death, disloyalty, delusion, defection, declaration. Okay, sure. Yeah, so that's David Jeremiah. He's a pre-tribber. Then on the other side, signs. This is Lifeway saying rise of false prophets. And people, I can barely cite anybody right now because the prophets are so false. I mean, it's just brutal right now. Some of the guys that I used to cite, I really don't cite anymore, okay? So love of many believers growing cold, traditional morals becoming less accepted. Whoa, was that ever? Wars, national conflicts, I got lots of that. Earthquakes, yep. Oh, and the suns, so tonight, I think, or tomorrow, we're going to have another CMA experience. And they're not big right now, but they're really hitting the Earth hard because our electromagnetosphere is thinning. And it's not looking pretty. Whenever these little burps are happening off the sun, these waves are hitting us hard. There's just nothing to hold it back. So this is interesting that people are aware that the birth pangs are occurring, but they don't know what to do with the birth pangs. We'll show you more. So now we're going to talk about birth a little bit. Okay, so get ready for it. There might be a little bit of blood. So labor is the process of childbirth, starting with contractions of the uterus and ending with the delivery of this wonderful baby, life. Okay, so number one is your baby drops. If you're a first-time mom, your baby typically will start to drop or descend in your pelvis a few weeks before labor begins, usually around 2 to 4 weeks before. So let's look at it and say, let's pretend that the last 2,000 years are divided into jubilees every 50 years. That's plausible. We're at our 40th week. That would mean like 2 weeks ago, we should have started these birth pangs, and it could have started, say, at that point in time. Oh, that'd be 1917 when Jerusalem was conquered. Oh, that totally works. All right, so let's look at it. So once again, 1, your baby drops. 2, your cervix dilates. I'm saying that's continental drift, which is the 6th seal. I could be wrong. You feel more cramps and decreased back pain. Earthquakes, wars. Okay, that's part of Matthew 24. Okay, your joints feel looser. I'm saying that's ethnic tribalism. That's Matthew 24 again. You have diarrhea. That's war. That's the 2nd seal. For my interpretation, obviously. You stop gaining weight. That's hunger. That's the 3rd seal for me. You feel extra tired. Oh, that's the perseverance of the saints. Okay. You're going to have to get through some tough times, so you will lose your mucus plug. I have no idea how to fit that in, because God wasn't that specific. With me, in terms of what that would mean for the end times, you feel stronger, more frequent contractions, your water breaks, and boom, baby. So let's go back 2 weeks ago. So the Caliphate controlled Jerusalem from 1517 to 1917. And there was also some interesting times. Solomon's temple lasted, X amount of years and things like that. So anyway, the USA declared war on Passover of 1917, and so very interesting. That's a birth pang from 2 weeks ago in 1917. Okay, so 100 years ago, the Balfour Agreement was 70 Cheshvan, which is like my birthday, 11/2 of 1917. No, I was born after that. I wouldn't be alive to this day. That's over 100 years ago. My dad was born in 21, though, and he'd be over 100 now. Charles Allenby. So he was Allah Navi. Do you see it there? Allenby, prophet Allah ha-Navi, the prophet of Allah, peacefully walked into Jerusalem during Hanukkah of 1917, and then Fatima apparitions occurred, on the 13th, 6 straight months. So it was a big year. So those were birth pangs, big birth pangs. Okay. And there's the Balfour Declaration, and there's Allenby walking in peacefully, shalom, into Jerusalem. And then here's 1967, the next birth pang. So 50 years later, boom, 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 right away. Moshe Dayan and Golda Meir fighting that war. They show up at the Wailing Wall there on the left-hand side. And then Shlomo Goren blows the shofar. And what does Goren mean? It means threshing floor. So he's blowing the horn on the threshing floor. It's so cool, and Shlomo means peace. So it's pretty cool. And he was 77 when he died. So it's really, really cool. And then there was a blood moon eclipse tetrad in 67, 68. So, everything seemed to add up. So we figured, by 2017, everything's going to happen. Nothing happened. So let's look at pregnancy one more time here, and we'll go through the stages. Early labor and active labor. I'm arguing 1917, 1967 are early labor, okay? The first stage is the longest of the 3 stages. It's actually divided into 2 phases, early labor and active labor, okay? And so the cervix dilates in the phases. You'll feel mild, irregular contractions, and that's what we're experiencing right now, okay? And how long it lasts? Well, it's unpredictable. It could be 7 days. Well, that would be a week. And so we'll see. Or it could be 2 weeks, like the other article said. I like that other article, you can tell. So what can you do? Contractions increase in frequency and intensity. It's up to you. For many women, early labor isn't particularly uncomfortable, and it hasn't been really, if you think about it, since 1917, it hasn't really been that uncomfortable. Try to stay relax so you walk, and that's what I'd recommend to you. And then once again, I mentioned the 40 weeks times 50 jubilees is 2,000 years. So from 30 Common Era, when Yeshua died and resurrected, to now, it's been about 2,000 years, people. Okay, so the stages again, we get to see the stages here. That's early, active labor, transition comes up here, and then stage 3, delivery of the placenta. Okay, active labor. Now it's time for the real work to begin. Active labor, the cervix will dilate to 10 centimeters. Contractions will become stronger, closer together, and regular. How long it lasts? Active labor often lasts 4 to 8 hours or more, so that's like a day. On average, your cervix will dilate at approximately 1 centimeter per hour. Okay, so here's the transition time frame, and I'm showing you the where's the Waldo thing because I'm trying to point out that this is the birth pangs, the contractions, okay? And we're going to look for those with the other theologians later on, the other eschatologists, okay? So the transition occurs, and it usually lasts 15 to 60 minutes, okay? And then stage 2 of the baby. It's exciting, and you get your baby, and hopefully it has a good APGAR. It has 2, 10, and 10, which would be 2 eyes, 10 fingers and 10 toes. My babies did, so I was pretty happy about that. I got caught in a contraction. My wife grabbed my throat. Now, fortunately, I was a really good college wrestler, so I have this meaty neck, and she got a hold of it, and it's like, well, it hurt, but it didn't really hurt that much. She had more pain than I did. And so I was fortunate that all that wrestling made my neck strong enough to handle a contraction. So you bear down and push when it's time, when you dilate, and then boom, baby. Okay, stage 3, delivery of the placenta. Whew, that is not a pretty thing. So there it is. And so that's the 3rd stage. You deliver that 5 to 30 minutes, and you're supposed to relax during that time. My son was so huge. The doctors were running around saying it's a full-blown 4, full-blown 4. And that means ripped from stem to stern. And all the doctors, it was like a parade of doctors coming in and going, wow, cool, look at that, because my son was huge. And the shoulders were even bigger than his head, and his head was a bowling ball. So, poor women. They put up with this. And they give you 2 and 3 and 4 babies, too, which is amazing. I wouldn't put up with it for 1. But I'm a wimp, Therefore, wait for me during the birth pangs, says Adonai, for the day when I rise to witness against you, when I decide to assemble nations to gather, kingdoms together, to pour on them my indignation, all my furious anger, all the earth will be consumed in the fire of my passion. Then I will change the peoples, okay, so that they will have pure lips to call on on the name of Adonai, all of them, and serve him with one accord. So basically, the people are regathered back to Israel right now in unbelief, belief, and then at some point in time, he's going to give them the pure lips. But the pure lips come from God, not from the people. So we're not going to make this happen. He's going to make it happen for us, and we have to wait. So let's see if he's ever warned us before with something like birth pangs. So according to 2 Peter 2, 5 through 9, this warning to Sodom and Gomorrah was a warning to those in the future, okay? So the wickedness then is supposed to teach us that if we're wicked today, we're going to get what they get or got, okay? So just be aware of it. Sodom and Gomorrah was a warning for today. Noah was a warning for today. Okay, and here again, would you have understood the birth pangs prior to the flood or the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah? Maybe not. They were kind of involved with themselves, kind of selfish, kind of, as I state, smug. Okay, so the genealogy of the first 10 generations is Adam, Seth, Enos, Kenan, Mahalalel, Yared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, and Noach. Man is appointed, mortal sorrow, the blessed God shall come down, teaching his death shall bring despairing comfort and rest. So, yeah, okay, that's a great story. I can't find it any other place, but we know that these storylines are in the Bible constantly. They're stories within stories, and it's in the Bible code. And so I'm telling you that people were warned in Sodom and Gomorrah. They knew they were being arrogant and committing disgusting acts, and so he swept them away. Okay, that's Ezekiel 16, and also none of the original 12 escaped surveillance, arrest, interrogation, jail, torture, exile, or execution. Why should you expect any better treatment than the disciples? Okay, so now let's go back to the Torah and find out where birth is handled and how it's handled in the New Testament. So first of all, from the Torah, the woman, if she births a male, she has to wait an additional 33 days, 40 total, to be purified from her blood. And then with a female, she would be unclean for 2 weeks in her nidah, and then she has to wait another 66 days, 80 total, to be purified from her blood. So, but 7 days is the same uncleanness as in nidah. So it's interesting. So these are the rules from Leviticus 12, and whether for a son or a daughter, she is to bring a lamb in the first year, a burnt offering, an olah, and a young pigeon or dove for a sin offering to the entrance of the tent of meeting, unless she's poor, like Mary and Joseph in Luke 2, where she brings, the pigeon or dove, and because she was poor, but they kept Torah in the birth process, and she probably had some birth pangs. I mean, she was probably a very young woman, and so these are the rules. So obviously, Mary and Joseph kept Torah. Here's Isaiah 26, which is part of basically Isaiah 24 through 27 is like Revelation for Jews, although Daniel is too. As a pregnant woman about to give birth cries out and writhes in labor pains, so we have been at your presence, Adonai. We have been pregnant and have been in pain, but we, as it were, have given birth to the wind. We have not brought salvation when we don't. He does. And those inhabiting the world have not come to life. So that's the resurrection. Your dead will live. That's the resurrection. My corpses will arise. Awake and sing, you who dwell in the dust. For your dew is like the morning dew, and the earth will bring like the ghost to life. Interesting. So that's Isaiah again. Here's Isaiah 66 about labor pains again. Before going into labor, she gave birth. Before her pains came, she delivered a male child. Whoever heard of such a thing? Now, many believe that was Israel coming to life May 14th of 1948. Some people discount that. But anyway, who has ever seen such things? Is a country born in one day? Is a nation brought forth all at once? For as soon as Zion went into labor, she brought forth her children. Would I let the baby break through and not be born, says Adonai? Would I, who caused the birth, shut the womb? So it was interesting. 1917 was huge. 1947, 48 was huge. And then 1967 was huge. And then we've had a lot of peace lately. So 73 was bad. But really, it's been kind of peaceful. So here's Jesus talking about it. So this is Matthew 24, the Olivet Discourse. Yeshua replied, watch out, don't let anyone fool you, for many will come in my name saying, I am the Messiah, and they will lead many astray. You will hear the noise of wars nearby and the news of wars far off. So see to it that you don't become frightened. Such things must happen, but the end is yet to come. For peoples will fight each other, nations will fight each other. and there will be famines and earthquakes in various parts of the world, and all this is but the beginning of the birth pangs. At that time you will be arrested and handed over and punished and put to death, and all the peoples will hate you because of me. At that time many will be trapped and to be trained and hating each other. Many false prophets will appear and fool many people. Okay, so birth pangs again. So that's the New Testament. So now let's look at some other guys out there that people are listening to, because everybody's sending me their videos. So there's Joel Richardson and Dalton Thomas, and they're creating all sorts of videos, and they're real serious about what they're talking about. Whether they're right or wrong, they're really serious about it. So I said, where's their birth pangs? Well, they're putting them in the first 3.5 years. Okay, interesting. So I'm saying that the birth pangs begin in 1967 and go through about a 1 week time frame. They're saying, oh no, they're right in that first 3.5 years. So you will have no idea until the birth that the birth is occurring. So you're going to be caught off guard. Okay, so where's Waldo? They say Waldo is in that someplace in the first 3.5 years. Okay, and once again, 40 weeks gestation, 40 Jubilee gestation, 40 times 50 is 2,000 years. So, okay. So, here's more from these guys. So this is the pre-wrath model, okay? So they're saying the beginning of the birth pangs again, right about in here. The seals are opening up during that time frame. And then there's the rapture right there, just before the trumpets hit and the bowls. And it sounds like chaos to me, because everything's going boom, boom, boom. And I'm saying, no, I don't think that's how God works. But at least we have a Waldo there, so we know the birth pangs are in there. And this is via Alan Kirshner. And I don't know Alan Kirshner. Okay, so here's Mike Bickle. I don't think he's a true prophet. I used to respect him. I don't anymore because he's friends with Paul Cain before he died, and I really am disgusted by Paul Cain. But this is Mike Bickle. So the beginning of the birth pangs are outside of the first 3.5 years. So he got that right, which is very interesting. So that's why I'm citing him, even though I can't stand the guy now, because of the Paul Bickle connection and some of the other connections that he's got to these Kansas City prophets, some of which are really bad human beings, flawed. But it's still a mess because nothing else happens during the first 3.5 years. But it is interesting. So his Waldo is actually pretty good. And I'm telling you that part of the problem is that Paul Cain was a horrific human being that abused little boys. But I think he had a demonic connection because there are times when Mike Bickle is right and he got it from Paul Cain. So I don't know how to handle that, okay? But anyway, so he comes at the end of the 7 years. So this is Mike Bickle, and he's been post-trib for years. So it's a mess in terms of how the seals and the trumpets and the bowls open up over the last 3.5 years. But he's got the birth pangs out here. The problem is the birth pangs really sound like the seals. So we'll deal with that in a minute. Here's Waldo, or where's Waldo? This is the hybrid pre-wrath post-tribulational, and it looks like the birth pangs, the Waldos, are opening up early enough, but then they just drop in and everything's just hell on earth for the last 60, 80 days or whatever it is, just nightmarish. Okay, so here's another angle on this, which is the pre-wrath rapture timeline from these pre-wrath people, and I don't know who they were. I just found it. So the birth pangs are here during the first 1,260 days, the first 3.5 years. Okay, I find this all to be confusing, erratic, and lacking birth pangs. Yeah, you'll see that. Where's Waldo. Where are the birth pangs? They don't even put it there on the traditional view. Okay, and so it's interesting. The seals are here, and then the seventh is spread out, and then the trumpets, and then the bowls, and it's interesting. Here's another one down below. This is the rapture of the church. Right there, and then the birth pangs. Okay, so this is their version of this, which is interesting again. Most people are putting the birth pangs, the sorrows, in the first 3.5 years. Here's another one that's just nightmarish. This is where the seals and the trumpets and the bowls are all on top of each other. So if you're on the bottom of this, you're getting 3 hits at the same time. Trust me, people, you wouldn't know what to do if all 3 came at you at the same exact moment. If this was really the way it is. So where's the Waldo on this one? There is no Waldo. Okay, he says beginning of the birth pangs, but how? I mean, it's basically just bedlam. Okay, so once again, just so you can see my angle again, 67 through now, the first 7 seals open. And I don't know if it's 2020, 2030, I don't know. First 3.5 years, the 7 trumpets blow. 4 are the trumpets, the last 3 of the trumpets are woes, about every 6 months, okay? And then I'm saying the last 3.5 years, the 7 bowls, it's going to be about every 6 months. And it's going to be, you'll know it based on new moons, full moons. The judgment will be announced on the new moon, and then you'll notice it on the full moon. That seems to be the Moses angle if you really read deeply into the Exodus story. Continuing on, here's another one. This is, I can't remember who this guy was. I was looking at it. It was interesting. So he's overlaying the birth pangs with the seals and going with the first 3.5 years. So he's at least trying to put some birth pangs in there. So he's doing some Matthew 24 alignment. It's interesting. I don't know who the guy is. And here's another version down below of basically the same thing where the seals are interspersed with the birth pangs. It's interesting. It's still chaotic. I mean, because everything's condensed. It's like no warnings for you. Here's the traditional deal, which is this is interesting. I like this one because I saw the birth pangs at least before the rapture. But yeah, the good people are raptured. The people like the rest of us, we get destruction, and then the day of the Lord. So, I mean, it's just interesting to see it. But at least they put the birth pangs outside, and they made them green, which is interesting. And then down below here, the beginning of the birth pangs, and they're showing some signs of the birth pangs. Okay, now this is a friend of mine. I like this guy a lot. So don't make it sound like, don't call up John and say he's ripping on you. No, this is just John Haller's version of how things look. I saw this on the Prophecy Roundtable, and he's got a Where is Waldo. I assume that the seals are the birth pangs, but I'm not sure. And I think they're going through most of the first 3.5 to about 5 years. And so this is his take on this. So, he's a smart guy. He does a nice job. He really chronicles the news events probably better than anybody else right now. He's an attorney, I mean, he's doing his diligence. Really good reports. So anyway, this is John's, look on all of this, and he's got his trumpets, and he's got his bowls, and he's got his seals are opening up during the time frame, but at least he's thinking about it, and he's got the different horsemen up there. So at least, this is plausible. Okay. Here's another one, pre-wrath timeline, 7-year period from Alan Kirshner again. And so you can see it one more time. But I wanted to show you that because Alan's a Messianic Jew. And so he's got a Where's a Waldo, which is, again, in the beginning of the birth pangs. And so according to the Orthodox Jews, the Messiah is almost here, and evangelicals are sensing it. And so the Reformed Jews don't interpret the Torah message about the Messiah literally. They believe the Messianic age rather than an individual Messiah. They believe that it refers to a timeline when the nations will live in peace. Okay, everyone will obey the law of God. People of different faiths will work together and establish harmony. Okay, the Orthodox Jews, many Orthodox Jews interpret the Torah and Jewish scriptures teaching about the Messiah in a literal way. I'm a literalist too. That's why I get along so well with the Orthodox Jews. I mean, they talk about Mashiach more than we do as whatever I am, okay? They believe in the Messianic age, that the Messiah will come at some point in the future. Some Jews believe there is a possibility of the Messiah in every generation. Orthodox Jews believe that the Messiah will be a great leader, wise, merciful, and righteous. It's pretty accurate, okay? So once again, what do I show? I show you about 50-ish years of linear birth pangs with narrative breaks, okay, as we move into things. And so I don't know when things are going to finally kick off with the trumpets or the bowls, but I can tell you that we've been going over 50 years of these birth pangs, which is basically at least a week or two, okay? And so I'm not an imminence guy. And really, I think you're going to start noticing the stress levels of the imminence people, that they're going to start whacking out as things get busier, as the birth pangs become more logical and the contractions seem to make sense. Like, we're starting to realize, something's going to happen here. We're going to have a baby, okay? And so this imminence problem it has been a problem for 200 years, and it's just going to get worse. So be careful when people say, we don't know when the rapture is going to occur, but it's imminent. It's like, that's like increasing your stress level. Just don't buy it, okay? So just be aware, everything continues through. Everything continues through. And we're not really ending when Jesus returns and sets up his kingdom. We're just continuing on. The concept in the Greek doesn't work as well, but the Tamid lamp works out really well if I showed you the passages. And we're not doing that now because I've covered enough stuff. Birth pangs, again, look like the seals. Tribulation, first 3.5 years. Great tribulation, last 3.5 years. Are the 7 seals the birth pangs prior to Messiah? That's the question that we've been asking the whole time. I'm saying these are the birth pangs pretty much, from Matthew 24, and they look a lot like the seals. So we'll give you a couple more verses and then we'll send you on your way. So this is the New Testament version of, but you have no need to have anything written to you, brothers, about the times and the dates when this will happen, because you yourselves well know that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. For people that don't know, people that in the know kind of will know what's going on. When people are saying everything is so peaceful and safety, peace and safety, then destruction will suddenly come upon them in the way labor pains come upon a pregnant woman, and there's no way they will escape. Continuing on, a couple more verses here. These are Old Testament verses, but remind me of the New Testament. Pitied when birth pangs come upon you, the pain as a woman in labor, from Jeremiah 22. Can a man bear a child? No, only women. And will a man have his hands on the stomach like a woman? That's Jeremiah 30. Here's anguish and sorrow like panic seizing a pregnant woman in labor, Jeremiah 49, and then Jeremiah 49 again. This seems to be the Gog-Magog war. A woman in birth pangs will be that time frame. So, and then a little bit more from Hosea. The pain of being born will come to him, but he is an unwise sign. The time has come, and he shouldn't delay. There at the mouth of the womb, should I ransom them from the power of Sheol, which is death, which is under the ground? Should I redeem them from death? Where are your plagues, death? Where is your destruction, Sheol? My eyes are closed to compassion, Hosea 13. A little bit more from Micah 4:9. Why are you now crying out? Don't you have a king? Has your counselor been destroyed? That you seized with pain like a woman in labor? Be in pain. Work to give birth like a woman in labor, daughter of Zion. For now you will go off to the city and live in the wilds till you reach Bavel. That is the second Exodus, people. Just be aware of that. Then you will be rescued. There Adonai will redeem you from the power of your enemies. Now, many 70 nations have gathered against you. That's Gog Magog. And they say, let her be defiled. Let's gloat over Zion. Okay? A little bit more from Micah. But you, Bethlehem, so Bethlehem, near Ephraim, so small among the clans of Yehuda, out of you will come forth to me the future ruler of Israel, the Messiah, whose origins are far in the past, back in ancient times. Therefore he will give up Israel only until she who is in labor gives birth. Then the rest of his kinsmen will return to the people of Israel. A couple more from the New Testament here. When a woman is giving birth, she is in pain because of her time has come. But when the baby is born, she forgets her suffering out of joy that the child has come into the world. So you're going to feel some grief now, but then you're going to be full of joy as the baby is born. And so from Romans 8, the world is groaning as with the pains of childbirth. And this is the first fruits of the Spirit. So we're going to be redeemed at some point in time. In Revelation 12, birth pangs of very, very odd. We won't go into Revelation 12 today. So, sorry, this is kind of funny, but where's Waldo? Where's... So, were there birth pangs with Moses? Yes, there were. And so, I'm arguing that Moses knew that these were the birth pangs pulling them out of Egypt. And Solomon's temple again, I'm saying that they had birth pang warnings in that case too. And so from Jeremiah 6, we know that the destruction was near, and we know that the destruction is coming to the world. So this is in 70 AD, and we see the destruction coming. These are birth pangs again for the Second Temple. So as always, I argue that the first 3 seals are open. We're waiting for number 4, which is 1.944 billion deaths. And then we'll head into 5 and 6. They'll be interesting. What garments will you wear? It's going to be a wedding, people. Get ready for it. So that's the end of this video. It's a long one. I'm so sorry that I took so much time, but I wanted to throw those verses out. There are tons more of these birth verses, but I wanted you to see them in the context of this, and also to see what the other scholars are saying about birth and about the timelines, because we don't really know what the Gaza-Israel situation is going to be in terms of timeline. So take care, be blessed. Good night.